Thank you, Mayor. I know I've got to stay close to this little mic, right, so you can get the podcast. Right. I'll be brief, but I do want to go through some more of the details. I'm Kerry Smith, and with the Impact Group, we're part of the steering committee and the project management for this. As the mayor referred to early on, when you have a steering committee of 36 elected officials from 16 counties and 2 working groups of over 70 officials from sewer, water, utilities, parks, planning, MPOs, it is herding cats, and it is a major undertaking. But I will tell you, the level of commitment by these people to come to these meetings, the GIS mapping they've produced, the economic modeling they've produced, all on their time to show how big of a priority this is for them. Every 2 weeks they meet, every 2 weeks. There are some key officials, and I'll get into it in a moment. The key officials, the brain trust of who does this stuff now, the planners and everyone, are at the table. So this is important to know that as us as elected officials, you've got your folks who do this stuff every day are at the table with us, so that's important. First thing we needed to do, and again, we're talking about 2 issues here that then meld together, the coordinated land use and infrastructure planning and the new growth tax-based sharing. And we'll put those 2 together in just a moment. What we needed to do is establish a common vision. What is our capacity to work in concert so we have a common vision for our region? And that was the important part that the mayor referred to. We have experts in regions and counties in your cities, but they don't talk to each other very often, and when they do, it's usually through a trade group and not on specific projects that are multiple county-wide. This is that undertaking. One of the things that we identified over the past 18 months of work, that when we talk about the common vision and setting the framework, that org chart you saw is the framework. One of the things that we noticed, please go ahead, Matt, is that what happens is when you engage with different folks across the area, you become aware of the other initiatives that are out there. You know how many different groups do GIS mapping around here? You know how many different infrastructure plans there are for water, sewer, utilities? You sit down with a guy who runs gas lines for the gas company out to a township where they just put in an industrial park with no tenants. You know how much that costs them? All these things that cost money, are they smartly done? Are they rightly planned? Too often, and I serve on the planning commission in the city of Broadview Heights, so it's good to see my mayor and some council from Broadview. When you talk about planners, too often we find reactors. They look at census data and say everybody's moving here, okay, let's build a road. You need to plan, not react, and I think that's an important part. The other thing is it's top down and bottom up. One of the things that you all recognize is when you come in with an idea and force it on people, immediately you have cynicism and skepticism. Why are they telling us to do this? On the other hand, you have grassroots efforts. You have the citizens leagues and the locals. They come up, they have an idea, but how then do we put that structure in place? We have, and you saw those engagement meetings and the number of people who have been touched or have been engaged in this. We have the grassroots, and with your help, we have the top down. So this is all coming together in kind of I don't want to call it a perfect storm because the economy is so difficult right now, but pain is a motivator. If things were going well, we would not have these people at the table. But pain is a motivator, and it's a way to move things forward, and we'll give you some examples of what this has done in other regions. One of the things that Mayor Mike Lyons, Village of Richfield, shared, and he's chairing the land use team, there's value in what we see now and value in those issues that we have not even identified. So as we build the framework for going forward, and you've heard us talk about Minneapolis and St. Paul and what they did 40 years ago and how they're reaping those benefits today, those are the types of benefits that we can gain. In the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, there were 187 different municipalities 40 years ago. Today, there are 187 distinct municipalities. They didn't merge, but they worked together, and it's working, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Again, we increased our capacity for coordinated action. You bring people together now. We don't need to create a new scenario or a new government level or anything. We already have the expertise. It's bringing them together. Do not establish a new government entity. We could not have heard that louder. We don't need more layers of government. One of the things that's a natural tendency to do, and sociologists and psychologists teach you all the time, whenever there's an issue that comes up or a problem that needs solved, who can solve that? What organization can we go to? Oh, we don't know? Let's build a new organization. We're council members. What do? We form a committee. Wrong. We already have the expertise. We have the people, paid experts who are at the table today. Get them together under a common framework with a common vision. And that's what RPI is doing. Again, the existing systems of collaboration are already in place. We're not merging fire departments. We're not merging MPOs. They can do that on their own. You can have those discussions separately. But are they talking to each other and working together and trying to build a common database so that we can even talk about the same language in the same fashion, including maybe ODOT districts actually talking to one another as well? These are all at the table. Governor Strickland, Marvin Hayes, who is his urban bank, Marvin's at the table with us. He's taking this message back down to Columbus saying, you guys got to see what they're doing up in Cleveland. One of the things that we also discovered was at the same time, and again, these are things we learned along the way, the Ohio Commission on Local Government and Commission on Reform. They have an initiative underway. They came and found us because they said, you guys are way ahead of where we are. We want to identify areas in state law or the statutes or the code that does not allow or impedes better collaboration. What are you all working on? So they have an ear on us at the table in Greater Ohio and others. Again, right now what we need to do is begin developing the regional land use databases, building the scenarios, looking at the way we can do things. Continue to broaden the scopes and promote collaborations. What's interesting is success breeds success. When you have people out there who say, well, I've been working on this in Ashtabula County for 10 years, how can I become part of your group? We're getting a lot of that. In fact, we've had several members of NOCCA who have said, how can the city councils get more involved? We appreciate that interest. Provide ground on planning priorities and the issues to be explored. Where do we start? Water, sewer, roads, highways? What do we need to start? There's all kinds of issues. Port authorities, we have a number of different issues. Okay, Matt, keep going. All right, tax-based sharing. Here's the other side of it. The tax-based sharing is new growth only. If you go away with anything tonight, this is not a look back. This is new growth going forward only. Everything that a city has or municipality or village or township has today, they keep. This is only new growth going forward. The mayor mentioned that one of the feedback pieces we got is 16 counties too large. When we did the economic modeling and we looked at some of the counties at the very far south and east, were almost predominantly townships and extremely rural. Not a lot of new growth going on. Let's take those 4 out, move it to 12. We can build a trigger mechanism so that as growth continues, other counties can come in. But we're going to focus then on the 12 moving forward, and I'll show you those in a moment. New growth taxes to be shared. Here's the 2 important pieces. Commercial and industrial only, not residential. Not residential. This is commercial and industrial growth only. And there's a pooling mechanism that every city maintains. Any new growth is that 60% is retained, 40% is pooled. I'll get into the specifics in a moment. Then on the other side, income tax. We did the economic modeling. 60-40 was a little bit too large to mess with. So we went with the 80% and a 20%. The city maintains 80, it's pooled at 20. We'll get into how that 40% and 20% then come back to the cities in just a moment. One of the things then you have to do is say, okay, we're talking new growth only. What's the base year? Where do you set the bar? And what we looked at was, well, if you look at just 08 or just 09 or even 10, depending on how this comes out, there's been such a fluctuation. What if we took a 3-year rolling average and set the base in 2010 as the average of 08, 09, and 10? That looks like the most probable proposal coming out. New growth will be adjusted for inflation. We heard that early on. A number of folks came in and said we have different inflationary factors. The new growth is adjusted for inflation, so that's important to know. Then the distribution back is based on your population and the tax capacity that you have as a community. What I will implore you to do, and I know you don't want to read yourself silly and go nuts, we have these reports online. I have this PowerPoint online. Go through this information to get a better understanding of exactly what tax capacity is, but it's basically the ability for your community to have commercial industrial growth now and in the future. What does that look like? And then the population coming back. And then the pooled funds are then distributed back in that capacity. A very low tax capacity community will probably be a net recipient. A very high tax capacity community will probably be a net contributor. The key thing to know here, and please, don't get into the winners and losers scenario. This isn't about somebody winning. This isn't stealing from Peter to pay Paul or any of that. If you're a contributing city, you are so above the average of growth that you're growing no matter what. So that's actually a good position to be in, to be a contributor, net contributor. Cities will also, based on how the growth goes as the region goes, go in and out. Some cities will be recipients one year, the next year contribute. Some are very much on the edge. Some, of course, as you can imagine, are very much at the outliers. But that's the key piece to know. Matt?